My big suggestion to students, particularly through high school, is
You can do anything.
Choose it for you, not for
It is worth it.
Just focus on the next
Doesn't
step.
matter what you're doing.
Don't be afraid.
As long as you're doing
That
something.
is such good advice.
I don't think I could see myself doing
It's a
anything else.
challenging life.
Student nights, Wednesday to
Oh,
Saturday.
I worked on that house.
I racked up every single dollar of debt that I
I
possibly
think there's
could.
a lot of pressure on high school.
Yeah, I
kids
just
these days,
love
right?
working outside.
And if money is something that you care a lot
In
about,
hindsight, that
I've
was,
also been a very indecisive
But you
person.
keep looking for roads that have been less
it
travelled.
was just that moment that I knew what I wanted to do. So nothing else is going to change that.
Welcome to the guest speaker.
When we talk to students about careers, we often ask them to choose a job they might want in the future. But a better question would be, what kind of life do they want to build? That sentiment is at the heart of today's conversation with Darrell Bird, who's the owner of Dive Zone Whitianga. If you've been involved in education across the Coromandel, Bay of Plenty, Auckland or Central North Island, you'll know the pull of Whitianga. Each year, students arrive for camps and outdoor education programs gaining recognised dive qualifications, real-world skills employers value like resilience, responsibility, teamwork, decision-making and confidence. For some, it becomes a career. For others, it becomes a launching pad into whatever their future holds. At the heart of this opportunity is Darrell, as I mentioned, who has become an educator, employer, mentor, and a great example of a purpose-driven career built around a lifelong passion. Darrell didn't follow the traditional pathway. He left school after fifth form, trained as a draftsman, and after a few years realised something students eventually discover: success without passion isn't enough. Travel and new perspectives introduced him to diving and tourism. Within a short time, he had gained qualifications, international experience, and a career that would take him anywhere. Dive qualifications don't just open doors underwater, and I think that's what we need to mention early. They unlock global mobility, ongoing learning, leadership opportunities, and entrepreneurship. Darrell has worked in Australia, Wellington, and the National Park before deciding to build something of his own. A detour around the Coromandel led him to Whitianga, and with it a vision of a business that would support students, schools and the wider community, and boy has he been successful. Today, Dive Zone Whitianga is a pathway hub. Thousands of students and adults pass through those doors, gaining nationally and internationally recognised qualifications. Some go on to work in that dive industry. Others take those skills into things like trades, tourism, emergency services, engineering, teaching, or business. The common thread is confidence, resilience, and a deeper understanding of themselves and the world around them. So who is this conversation for today? It's for the whole spectrum of listeners. Students who simply want to try diving, those considering a career in the dive industry, schools looking to strengthen their outdoor education, their camps and real-world learning programs, and anyone interested in hearing from a leading expert about how this industry operates and supports learners, from first-time divers through to highly professionals. Welcome, Darrell. It's a real pleasure to have you here because I couldn't think of anyone more suited to have this chat with. I mentioned a little bit about leaving school early, and that'll be a while ago for you, but I do want to catch up on a little bit of that life history before we talk dive. Just talk us through you as a young man. I know you're in Palmerston North, so how did that go and what was education like?
Oh, look, it was, look, I had a good time as a youngster back in Palmy, but it was, yeah, school wasn't right path for me at the end. I think I needed to get out and work and earn something. University wasn't my path. So that's where I went and got myself a job as a draftsman, a cadet draftsman, working in that was one of the subjects I loved at school, tech drawing. Again, that was an office-y type job, and it wasn't really what I ended up wanting to be. So that's where the world travel started, and I needed to explore and see where I fitted in this place.
Did you get a sense of that while you're at school, Darrell? Like, were you the sporting kid and putting your hands up for camps? Like, were you always getting that feeling that, I mean, we've got them all in a lot of schools, eh? These kids who just, the classroom isn't necessarily for them.
Yeah, I was into kayaking and surf lifesaving and outdoor ed and scouts and all those different activities. But the academic side of university life didn't seem to be something it didn't inspire me.
No. When you were, fifth form, and you did a course as a draftsman, is that right?
Council put me through a cadetship as a trainee draftsman, and that was when the computer-aided drafting was just coming in. So we had big old drawing boards, and it was quite a process back then. But yeah, that again became an office type gig, and I needed to find more. I needed to find something else.
So how did you do that? So I suppose run us through those life experiences, that travel, those other things that maybe got more clarity for you.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to go to a rover moot in Switzerland, and as an adult scout, I suppose, in the outdoor ed sort of sector, and never really returned. That was where the world journey started, and the buzz of tourism and being part of it as a tourist just inspired me to want to take it further. And I'd always been keen on the water, and then dive naturally fitted into that.
So when did you first hit the water? When did you, I mean, because I'm going through, at some point we'll go through the qualifications kids get. When was the first time the tank went on and the mask and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so as I say, I've been in the rivers and in the water all my life, but I did my open water ticket in Dahab in Egypt when I first started my OE, so early 90s. So that was an amazing experience, and at that stage I didn't even realize I could make a career of it.
So how did you then? So how did that branch into, but I think there were other tourism things you got stuck into as well.
Yeah, yep. So I came back from overseas and wanted to get into tourism somewhere. I love the aspect of learning and language and enjoying these activities. So I enrolled in a course at Polytech doing a diploma in tourism. So that was my sort of area I wanted to fit into. But I found while I was on that course, I learned about this instructor program that was starting for dive, and that's what triggered me down that path. So I ended up diverting from my diploma in tourism into an instructor's qualification at the local dive store in Palmerston North.
That's got you going. So did that transition into employment in the industry?
Yeah, so I did. It was the first dive program, the first tertiary dive program in New Zealand. Actually, I was on in 1996 or something over back. And then I basically finished that program and started work in Ely Beach in the Whitsundays in Australia, like a week later. And then my journey in the dive world started. Like, it was just an amazing buzz being in the water and going through that, that experience.
So the Whitsundays, because I know later we'll probably talk about a lot of the kids who go and work over those sort of places. What was your role and job there? And then maybe lead us through how that role changed in other employment areas in the dive industry.
So I went over there as a new instructor, very green, just finished my program. And Ely Beach and the Whitsundays is sort of on the Great Barrier Reef. It's the lower part of the Great Barrier Reef. And very much a lot of dive operations over there, taking tourists out, spending time with customers, teaching them how to dive in the pool first, and then going out and showing them the amazing wonders of the reef. So that was my journey for 2 years. I ended up living out on these liveaboard dive boats out of Ely Beach in the Whitsundays. It was an amazing experience.
And so after that, what happens to you in terms of that career? Because obviously we're heading towards opening a dive shop, which not everyone will get to. But how many things are happening to you in the dive industry? You've now qualified, you've spent time in the Whitsundays, you're getting pretty good at it. What else happened to you?
So then I found it was time to come back to New Zealand, and they say, look at the career chances or where I could take this job. So I came back to Palmerston North, and being a bit distant from the ocean, ended up moving down to Wellington. So I worked at a dive store there. Now started to teach the instructor type program. So I've had 2 years teaching divers now, and I'm now starting to share those experiences with other divers that want to take a pathway in the industry.
Okay. And so at that point, your qualification, because I know when I chatted to you, and it's probably a good time to mention it for people sitting there, recreational divers in a weekend can go and get their open water, and that lets them go in diving with tanks on to a depth of 18 meters. Then you get your advanced open water. That's going to be more like 5 dives. And then you can eventually be a rescue diver. So it's sort of this transition. The more you dive and the more paperwork you do, the more the qualifications mount. Was that the same for you back then, or
Yeah,
have things?
absolutely. So the international standards haven't changed much in that sense. The process has been the same ever since sort of diving first came out. But diving's a big thing. It's time in the water. It doesn't matter where you come from, who you are. It's just spending time doing it. So, as say, we did our open water, our advanced, our rescue, our dive master, and came up to instructor level. And then I started working in the industry, and then I was teaching open water and advanced divers in the Whitsundays for a while. And then as I came back to New Zealand to Wellington, and started teaching open water right the way through to the dive master level and on to instructors. So those guys now starting to have careers in the industry all over the world.
From Wellington, where did you go?
So Wellington, we had some weather issues in Wellington. It was unreliable for me. I found it a little bit chilly coming back from the Whitsundays. So I ended up having some time out and doing some time at OPC at National Park, so Outdoor Pursuit Centre there, doing the outdoor ed part of it. And the good thing is a lot of these skills and disciplines cross over to so many areas, learning how to look after a group, learning how to look after students in multiple different areas. So we were doing high ropes and low ropes and taking guys kayaking and doing all sorts of activities at National Park for a while. I was there for probably a year and then decided that I missed the ocean too much. So I had to keep moving north and got myself a job at the dive store in Hamilton. So worked there for a little while. But really, I'm starting to get into I wanted to do my own thing and be responsible for whatever I said happened, and the only way I could secure that was to take the punt and open a dive store. And the problem was, where do I do that? New Zealand's full of beautiful diving locations and access and stuff, and I come across the Coromandel, and then Whitianga popped up that there was no training centre here, nowhere to learn to dive with all the beautiful surroundings and islands and access. So I opened in 2004. So yeah, it's been a journey to get there. It was an amazing opportunity when we first opened.
I mean, you had the luck of being the first here. Can I just go back? So you went from being a highly skilled scuba dive instructor expert to now branching into business. Now, so we're getting into a completely different field. Where did your investment come from? Who supported you in that? Because that's quite a big thing.
Yeah, so I was very lucky enough to have some support from family when I set that up. But the big thing was, over the years working in the dive sector, I started to learn the backside of it as well, which was the booking and taking clients and the running of that aspect. I was the training manager in Wellington for a while, so I had staff under me. So it seemed like a natural transition to put my money where my mouth was and take a punt and open a little dive store in Whitianga.
How old were you?
I was 20. No, I would have been 32 or something when I opened the dive shop.
So my question, and I'm fortunate I did the training, etc. I've got my paddies, my scuba license. But so when you're opening it up, are you having to get a pool? Can you do everything outside? Like, it's not like any kind of regular retailer. You have to have quite a lot of equipment, and I can imagine to make it worthwhile, a lot of equipment for a lot of people to be training. So when you were first starting, what were the things you had to get that is unique to a dive shop?
So we, when I first opened, we didn't have a pool. We used to use the local 309 river, one of the swimming holes, for our pool.
Yeah.
Beautiful crystal clear water, but it was a little bit chilly. So we had to work around that. We did everything from the shore. We didn't have a boat. That came a couple of years later, our first boat. So you had to earn some cred, I suppose, before we could go any further. I had 12 sets of hire gear across the different sizes. By opening in October, I got enough leeway that I could hopefully pay for most of that stuff as I went through summer. So I got a line of credit from the suppliers, and Paddy were very supportive as an agency opening a new facility.
Yeah.
And we had certain processes we had to meet before we could become a store and meet that, the requirements that they had for us.
It's interesting that timing of opening in October, because I was in Pawanui over the summer, and there was every day I would hear the same advert. I don't believe it was yours, but there was this advert going, and it was targeting people saying, "Hey, if you want a career for you, could be dive instructing." It's everything we're talking about, and when they're doing everything right, it's summer, it's in the Coromandel, people are thinking, "What do I want to do with my days?" I could be diving. And I just thought this is the perfect kind of concoction of the time of the year, the Coromandel, the region. So that first summer for you, was it quite successful, would you say?
Yeah, look, it took a while to get some momentum, and for people to realize we existed. And luckily enough for us, the summer here, there's enough people, you'll survive the summer by default nearly, if you're keen, and people will give you that chance. So during that opportunity, I had to make sure that they came back.
Yeah.
And so we had a staff of 3. One of them was Craig, one of my first students, and he's still with me now as one of my employees 20 years later. And it was just really, really cool. I didn't have a day off for probably 2 years.
Yeah, you're speaking the business line. A lot of business people would remember, like you come, yeah. I'm interested. How did you get the word out? Like, I mean, it wouldn't have been on a podcast. It wouldn't have been on Facebook. How were you trying to spread through Auckland, the Waikato, Bay of Plenty, that you were even here and what you offered?
Yeah, for sure. Like I say, radio, and there was a few different newspapers back then that were ways of marketing things. Yeah, there was no Facebook or medium like that. So a lot of it was very organic as well through word of mouth. We were very small for probably the first 2, 3, 4 years as we slowly grew, and I was the owner, instructor, service guy, tank tester guy, everything, as we grew. So one of the hardest parts I found was actually employing staff, when we needed someone for the shop. What am I looking for in this person as far as quals, or is it more of the personality, so that was a learning curve for me as well, that part of the process.
Yeah, there'll be a lot of people interested, particularly locals here, Darrell. Like they'll know where you are now in this beautiful old building, huge, spacious thing. But you didn't start there, did you?
No. So we started in a building around the corner, and we'd been looking for somewhere to open up, and found that there's a new block of shops that had 2 empty buildings, and I thought they were too small. And someone had mentioned, why don't you join them together, which I hadn't even contemplated. And we slowly grew in that spot. So my answer was always yes. And the staff would bring up, and someone would want to hire 4 tanks, and we haven't got any. So I would say yes, and then I would ring up all my mates and see if they were diving tomorrow, and see if we could borrow their tanks to grow our fleet. So we couldn't afford to have multiple tanks and gear available. So a lot of it was borrowed from customers and family and friends and things that are up here, until we got momentum to be able to buy some more.
That jump into the big building would have been because you finally got to a point you're big enough.
Yeah, we had 12 years at the first building. We ended up taking on another block of shops there as well. As we got wider, so to speak. We started off with unit 7 and 8, and then we went unit 6 joined on as well. And we were very close to the water. It was nearly 3 years in when we first got our own boat. And that was a huge asset for us, a little Stavy craft. And we could take 6 divers out on our own, without having to do charter boats. It made us more reliable. And then again, slowly, we grew from there as well. So being able to offer the instructor type programs gave me some income through the year. And we were very lucky. The local high school had a initiated a marine program with us in the first year. So we had 6 students that first year. And they came every Friday and we took them diving basically. And that's now grown into a huge program that we still run today. And we probably have 40 students every Friday now.
And that's tying back to the work you were doing at OPC with the students and whatnot that would pass through there. I'm quite curious, like, if you have 40 students every Friday, I mean, things change, and obviously every generation's kind of different, but in the time you've been doing it from the 6 kids to the 40, what does that Friday normally look like? And like, why do you keep doing that?
Oh, look, I just love it. Seeing these kids come up through through the ranks, as they grow. They were one of my customers' children to start with, and then they become my customer, as they get older and get into the senior high school, and watching them enjoy that experience. Diving something you can't explain to someone until they've done it. They need to go and have that experience and come back with their own stories of what they saw, and how they felt.
Yeah. Do you remember the first school to come visit you with their group? Because now you might tell us, how many schools come through you each year, but do you remember the first one? And also, do you remember, can you rattle off who comes regularly each year to see you?
Yeah, so we've probably got 10 schools that come regularly with us now, right through from Tamanui in the south, Pokotani to the east, Hamilton schools. St. John's group are here today doing some training in the holidays. Cambridge High are here next week doing some training. They're very popular. Hamilton Boys, St. Peter's. We've got Te Kuiti coming very shortly. So Hamilton Girls, Dio. So there's a lot of different schools that come here and do it as part of their outdoor ed programs to get the experience. Also the local schools with Mercury Bay, Manaia, Coromandel, Whangamata, and Thames High schools as well. So I still remember the kids that were on the first Marine Academy program, and it's really interesting seeing them now come in, and their children are now starting to learn to dive.
Yeah.
So that's the cool part about that. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah. And this is what today's partly about, because I've sat with a lot of those kids at Mercury Bay, and the amount, like you say, it's every second kid says, oh, I'm in the Marine Academy. So, well, Friday's out for a start because you're going diving. But I don't want kids elsewhere who don't have that opportunity to sort of not understand how to get into it. There is a bit of mystique about it, and there'll be a lot of people just simply not try it because they're just unsure of how it goes and what to do. Yeah. And like I said, when I went through the qualifications you drew up for me, you start with your open water, get you to 18 meters. What does that training look like? What do you do with someone at that very early stage? Grace said she went through it. I sent my 2 kids through it. What do they do to get that first ticket?
So what happens is nowadays there's some e-learning that they complete. When I first opened, we had books and an overhead projector, and we'd do evening classes with them on a Friday night. But now everyone gets sent out an e-learning link, and they do the homework in their own time wherever they are. So it can be anywhere in the world, actually. They can do their e-learning, and it's got quizzes and little videos, and it shows them all the theory backgrounds. And then we spend some time in the swimming pool, and the pool sessions are as long as they need to be for the students to become comfortable in the water. And they're going to do things like clearing their mask, taking their BCD on and off underwater, removing their regulators and putting them back in, sharing air with a buddy, all of the safety type exercises that would make them comfortable to go out diving with a buddy once they're certified. So then they go out and we do 4 scuba dives in the open water. So we'll do 2 dives repeating all the sort of exercises they've done in the pool. And the one that tends to trip everyone up is taking the mask on and off. It's sort of a really interesting space. When you can't see, you tend to think you can't breathe. So, or you snort a bit of water up your nose. So that tends to be the one that the favorite of anyone in the world that learns to dive is clearing their mask.
Qualification, once they have that, you've taken all the time in the world to get them from the pool into the ocean. They're taking off their mask. They get given their open water when you're comfortable. They deserve to have it. That allows me, if I get one, I'm in the Maldives or I'm in Indonesia or the Great Barrier Reef, to go into a dive shop and hire some gear, and I don't have to snorkel around with all the idiots flapping on the top.
That's right. So once you're certified, your license is valid internationally. So PADI's the largest certification agency in the world, and they're in 186 different countries. So wherever there's beautiful, warm, cold water, wherever there's anywhere that there's water, basically there's somewhere to go diving, whether it's up in Scotland in the cold, or whether it's in the tropics. And you can turn up at any dive shop and they'll ask you for your certification card. And depending on what level you have will depend on where they allow you to dive. So as you were saying before, 18 meters is the open water level, which covers most conditions around the world for where all the pretty life and all the sort of cool colors and things is in that top 10, 15 meter range.
Okay. What does it cost me to get that, Darrell? What if a family's sitting there now going, I'm going to send my son or daughter along, I'd really love them to get this qualification. What does it cost?
Yeah, so we're $7.99 to do that PADI certification. And if the kids are at school, that's also equates to 7 level 3 NCA credits, which they can do towards, that's where the outdoor ed groups come and do that as part of a school camp. But anyone can come on a weekend through the holidays and learn to dive just as a hobby. Initially, when I did it, I didn't see it as a career. I didn't realize there was career opportunities. I just wanted to do it because it was cool. And we got to see some amazing things,
Yeah. So can we just quickly then go through, you've got your open water, there's advanced, then there's rescue, then you're getting your dive masters. Can you just how is someone's skill set developing over those before we talk the careers that eventuate for those people?
So what happens is guys will get their open water ticket, and then they can either get out there and dive with family or go on charters with us or with other people around the country or around the world. They could then choose to take on their advanced certification, which could hopefully again is with us, or it could be anywhere in the world. The certifications are international. And that's another 5 different scuba dives. And this time they're not practicing their personal skills. They're now practicing how to use some different instruments, like using their compass more or learning what happens at depth. So they're the 2 compulsory ones. And then there's 3 others that you do depending on where you are. We often do peak performance buoyancy. So you're really practicing getting them comfortable so they're not going to be disturbing the ocean. Search and recovery is another one, learning how to find objects or lift them or retrieve things from the ocean. You may have dropped something, and how do you bring that back to the surface? Night diving is another one, which is a really cool activity. You know how to dive. Now we're going to put a torch in front of you and what boundaries that has with where you can see when you're diving with only with the light of a torch. So that's sort of advanced. Different locations, you could do a wreck dive, or if you're diving somewhere really cold, you could do a dry suit dive. There's a lot of options there, but there's 5 components that you need to complete. And then that's where a lot of guys get to if they ever want to dive. Say you want to go up north and dive the Canterbury Shipwreck. You need to have your advanced certification to dive that, because that's sitting in 20, 25 meters of water. So the advanced gives you the certification to dive to 30 meters.
Right.
Which covers most things anywhere in the world.
Right. Okay. On from that, if we just talk high end before we talk jobs, the professional levels, or are they the professional levels, or are now you teaching others, learning how to teach others those skills? Is that sort of the next phase of qualification?
Generally, when someone gets their advanced, they tend to really get into the diving and want to take it further. And that's where rescue comes in, and that sort of looks at your own rescue and you're rescuing and looking after your buddy, right? So that, again, a lot of families do that when the family start to dive or the kids are learning. So dad has his ticket and wants to do his rescue so he feels more comfortable with the kids. But you have to take these different steps before you can go on and do any professional training. So the first professional step is dive master. And for that, someone needs to have at least 40 scuba dives under their belt before they can start and have open water advanced and rescue. And then that's where they start guiding and assisting and helping on courses, helping with logistics, setting up the dive program for the day. There's risk disclosures and things that they'll help set up and get participants to sign. And then they can then start running, helping on boats and guiding people on dives as a tour guide underwater, basically. And at the end of that, they get their dive master certification.
And you've actually got kids at Mercury Bay who are going for that. Like, that's the sort of level they're getting to as kids.
Yeah, absolutely. So that one's got an age base, so they need to be 18 when they get certified for that. So we've got kids this year that are doing their second year of the Marine Academy program, where they went up to rescue the first year and coming back and doing that, and then taking it further and going on to become scuba instructors. So there's so many different options of pathways. But the dive master is the first professional rung where they can start using it as a career choice. As a guiding on boats, doing discover scuba dives, taking people in the pool for an entry opportunity to see what diving's like.
Yeah, okay. If I get infatuated with it, am I better to buy my own equipment?
Oh, look, absolutely. Having, especially your personal gear, right? If the wetsuit fits you and it's yours, and your mask and snorkel, everywhere you go, you got a different hire mask, and it might not be the same. It might not quite fit. So especially that personal gear, the wetsuit and mask and snorkel, obviously having your own, when you get up to dive master instructor level, having your own BC and computer and rigs and things, that's your sort of, these have become the tools of your trade. It's like your hammer for a builder, So they're things you can grow into, but initially having your own mask and snorkel would be the one piece of equipment I'd recommend that every person owns, that they know it fits their unique shaped face,
Yeah. Now, just in case I forget, I'm just going to hold up a book if people are watching on YouTube. You've got a million of these sort of books and information things that people can reach out, and it's full of all of the stuff you're talking about, who's going to take you on trips. It's a brilliant thing. So if anyone wants to reach out to you at Whitianga Dive Stores, just to make sure they have that information, you can get that out to them. Is that the process?
Absolutely. So anyone that is interested in doing any of those career type programs, we're happy to do a discover scuba dive if they haven't dived before, or do like a refresher dive if they've got their ticket already. We get a lot of the school kids do this at school, and then 2 or 3 years later when they're leaving, they think it might be something they want to do as a career. So that gives them a great opportunity to come and have a look how we operate, talk to other students, talk to staff, and see what it's actually like as a job. Some kids may find it's a great thing as a hobby, and that it's not a career for them, and others may decide that they want to live in this world. So
You mentioned the word refresher. Now, obviously, this is aimed at students and their careers, but I remember when I was getting mine, I said, Dad, let's go out together. And it was funny because I just had the training. So I was doing everything by the book, step by step. Then he went, okay, maybe I need a bit of that refresher. Because, I was on him about each step we're supposed to do. A question then, how much of your business or the day-to-day do you get people coming in who go, I just need that, what is the refresher? What does that do?
yeah, so we get a few coming to do a refresher that did their course, when they were younger, and then life got in the way and families and careers and everything, and they never dived. And that can be done quite quickly, there's no real structure to it. It's based on the person themselves. There's certain skills we repeat, look at the mask skills and some of the rig exercises. but it's basically about how comfortable they are. And often it's like riding a push bike. You spend 10 minutes and you get your rhythm back and you're away again. It's sort of more of the remembering some of those safety steps that you may have forgotten through diving with your mates, you know?
Yes, and
Yeah.
I know like we'll go back on the career, but I did just want to touch like there's a huge safety element with this, right? Like it's water, you're quite far under the water. What are some of the biggest things you're stressing to people? Because they might have an uncle or a cousin who goes, "Oh, I'll teach you how to dive. No worries." Why do we not want people doing that and instead coming to a place like yours?
So the big thing is getting the certification. The diving part's actually quite easy, putting the regulator in and just breathing and swimming around. It's the what if. So, and that's where all the course covers that safety. If something happened on your dive, you got to manage your ascent and not hold your breath and do all those safety type skills. The natural thing for someone to do would be to hold their breath and go to the surface, which is probably the most dangerous thing to do. So that's where learning and getting your certification covers and gives you that peace of mind. It's also covers you as far as insurance goes as well. If you're not certified, you're not insured if something happened while you're on a scuba dive.
It's interesting. One thing you pointed to me, Darrell, was we're getting Dr. Elliott on, the shark expert. And when I talked to you about, well, what about sharks? And it was interesting. You said I'm probably more likely as a surfer to be maunched up than a diver because you mentioned the sounds and things. Can you explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a very common thing. If you ask someone about dive, the first thing is, I don't like sharks or I'm scared of sharks. It's very common. But we see very few. If we do, it's something disappearing in the distance. We make a lot of artificial noises, sort of like Darth Vader with our regulators. And sharks tend to use their sensory vibration and rather than their eyesight. So it's their smell and their sound rather than seeing us in the water. So surfing with your seal-like arms on the surface, you have more chance. Yeah, freedivers may see the shark with a fish with them when they've got a bit of a burley trail, whereas scuba divers generally don't have burley trails sort of following behind them. So we don't tend to see too many, which is a bit of a shame. And you can go to certain places in the world and actually go on set shark dives where, they've started to look after the shark and now it's a tourist asset rather than a food source.
Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to put a shout out for there's probably two types of parents that we're referring to. And I was one where I wanted my child to grow in confidence, to build resilience, to just learn a skill set. There'll also be some who see maybe school they're not engaging with, because you mentioned you can get NCA credits. So there could be some parent, so there's actually going to be three. There's the person who just says, look, get my kid in the water. I want them to learn stuff. There's some where they can use it educationally. Now let's transfer into the career thing, because when I started looking at this, we've got everything from police divers to people welding underwater to working in mines to tourism. I don't think people would probably quite understand where your kids, the ones you've over all of these years, can you give us some examples of those career paths?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, there's so many options for the path. So obviously I went down the tourism recreational path and looking after that. And a lot of our students have done that as well. We've probably got, I don't know, 10 or 20 current students working in cairns and different parts of Australia, working on liverboard dive boats and day boats that have come out of our programs and are now living the life of a dive instructor in the tropics. We've recently just had one of our graduates who did his course in 2010 as an 18-year-old, return to Whitianga, and now he has his own charter boat, which we charter off him to help run bigger groups. So he did his course, went and worked in cairns for a while, went and got more experience and added on his skipper's ticket, and then now he's come back and he's bought himself a charter boat and he's doing fishing and dive charters. So it's really quite cool, the opportunities that take right through the cycle. Other guys, we've got Tara that worked for us for a while from Tamaranui, came here as an 18-year-old, did her instructors, worked for 4 or 5 years for us, and then had a total change of path and went over to Canada and was running a zip lining activity in Canada. The control skills, the group management, the weather management, all those things are very transferable to the different disciplines. She's since come back and is now working for DOC, looking at river management in the Tongariro region. So she's doing dive and doing other stuff in that field. So there's just so many different areas where kids can work. The other one is commercial is quite a big area. There's a big commercial school in Huntly, and we've had graduates come out from us, go and do the commercial welding like you talk about, and then have very successful jobs working on rigs or working for different councils, maintaining water supplies and doing salvage sort of work.
Yeah.
Also got guys working in the aquaculture industry as well that are working on mussel beds, mussel farms, and seaweed stuff is another one that's starting to grow now as well with manufacturing and utilizing the products you can use for that too. So it's not even looking at getting into the marine science aspect of it as well.
Because you think about how much of the world is underwater, and I have a friend who did high ropes, and I only bring this up because part of his job is he's done the dock, he's done the mining, anything that needs to be reached via rope. Like you can't just do it. It sounds like there's a huge element of what you're talking about in terms of career of what can you not reach from land. So this scuba license and this pathway allows you to keep things moving in society that
Absolutely.
just happen.
I've seen things evolve massively since I've been in the industry, as say with the way we deliver material and the use of internet and AI and things like that. But the physical component of dive needs a person. So there's always going to be someone jumping in the water to do that kind of job, whether it's commercial, whether it's on the aquaculture farm, whether it's looking after the tourist. The back end, the theory part can be done more online, but there's always someone doing the cool part.
Yeah. And it is the cool part. Is there any sort of qualities, like in some other careers we ask, like, oh, if you could be suggesting subjects to take, what would you take? Is it one of those careers or pathways where you notice some parallels of, if they're doing the outdoor read or something else? Like, is there any other thing we could recommend to students to say, hey, if you're interested in this, might be worthwhile also getting stuck into something else?
Yeah, it is interesting the fact we do a lot of maths and physics in dive, which is something I didn't think I would be into at school. But the mathematics part of it, of our calculations and all the gas laws for what happens to us underwater, we actually learn a lot of science doing scuba dive. So it's really interesting, and they relate because we talk about it in class. What happens to boils or things compress as we go in the water? Or Charles' law is about heat and expansion, so that's about our gas and our tanks. There's so many different areas of the gas and partial pressures and things that we utilize, but we learn about it in class and we physically go and do it the next day. So it's a really good learning way of actually learning maths and physics, especially.
Oh, that's epic.
Yeah. You're bloody privileged, aren't you? Because in a sense, all of us teachers, me being an ex-one, would love to be able to teach something, then go look at it. The reality is, for most of us, that's not going to happen, but you actually get to live that dream, which is the most educationally sound way of doing anything, isn't it?
Yeah. So we talk about a lot of these things and the principles behind things, and then the next day we go out and put it into practice, and it really makes it sit in the mind a lot better. You can relate to the reason behind that, that silly law or whatever you were trying to share the day before. It makes sense. So I spent some time teaching some guys in Vanuatu, and they left school at the end of intermediate and very competent in the water, but I had to basically teach them science. They understood, that's why the gas tank does that on the front of the boat when it's in the sun, when we talked about the gas laws. So they knew it from a practical sense, and I just had to convert them into the theoretical side of it, which was really cool because they all had these amazing click moments when they realized that they knew a lot more than they thought they did.
Yeah. And on that, do you have a few people, you'd be sent some fairly disengaged kids, I would imagine. You've probably dealt with some kids who have really struggled at school and they see this as a bit of a lifeline, if not a career. Would that be true or not?
Yeah, absolutely. The big thing for us is if you're physically able and you can, you don't have to be a legendary swimmer. If you're comfortable in the water, we can make everything else happen if you're keen. And it's really rewarding when you see guys that do these things and then achieve it and want to take it to the next level. It might be the first time someone's actually achieved a certification. And the big thing with dive, it's about repetition and copying, right? So you're repeating what the next guy did. It's not about trying to create your own system. There's a worldwide system of how it works. So it makes it very easy for kids to learn if they can follow it. The big part is we talk about it and then we go and physically do it. And that's the part that really nails things home for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I just want to put a shout out because I'm just going through the list of some of the interviews we've had, Grace and I. We've had people who've worked on super yachts, firefighters, police, defence force, med school students. All of these people can benefit with the qualifications. For example, a med school student has to have an interview and prove that they're generally all round, not just a science nerd, that they understand other stuff and maybe that instructional side of it, being able to explain well. Obviously, the super yacht industry, which is big in New Zealand with the academy in Auckland, and it's interesting, that girl we interviewed, Ellen Butler, has been through your program, and obviously it would have been on her CV when she worked for super yachts, and they would have seen that as a real benefit, whether she went diving or not. They would have seen it as a benefit. The same with the police, the same with the defence force. So my thing is, if you're a parent sitting there, they're not all going to be dive instructors, but the transferable skills are incredible.
One of the things I find is really interesting in watching as the students come through, we have our year-long diploma program after the kids leave school to go through to becoming the instructor. And the lightest area probably with students is being able to stand in front of a group and talk, right? And being in front of other people talking. Whereas if we got the students to do that in February when they start, it would be a very different outcome to when we get them to do it in September, October. They're now really just sharing their experience with some friends, So when they're in front of the class, talking about diving and talking about how to do some different activities, they've now got the confidence because they've got the skill behind them, that part grows. So it actually gives people a lot of strength in multiple areas, for being able to look after themselves in a public environment.
Looking after themselves, but also looking after the others, the dive buddy. That's a big one when we go diving. And I remember you said at the beginning, Darrell, about the emptying your mask and how when you're underwater, it freaks out. And I remember my dive buddy, Chelsea, was freaking out when it came off, like really going through it because she just started to stress, right? Couldn't see whatever. And I remember with her in that moment, I just tapped the forehead because, you're supposed to put your fingers there and do this and whatever. And being with her, she calmed down and we got the job done. And when it was vice versa, same thing. But something that's fun and you're just with your mates and doing this, there's also this element of like, oh, you really got to be looking after your dive buddy and yourself.
Yep.
Right. And like, I found that was quite a cool, unexpected part of the training was, there's quite a bit of responsibility when you go 18 meters or 17 meters underwater, right? Like the stakes change a little bit.
Look, it is. And it's just really cool seeing people come back once they've done training and they've got careers overseas, and you can follow people now on different social media channels and see what they're up to, like Lucy from Cambridge High last year, she worked for us and did her instructors, and now she's just put a post up recently about her year in Cairns working on one of the dive boats over there. It's so cool, the excitement and seeing that buzz from different students, We're not male orientated either. It's male, female. It'll be a 50-50 mix in that industry. I've got 12 staff and I've got 7 females at the moment. So, It's very even industry in that sense as well.
And what's the quickest way people, do they have to walk in the door in Whitianga, or can they ring, they book prior to coming? Because some people just don't even probably know how they get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So the biggest thing here, email is probably the easiest now, even phone or text, and we can start a conversation and send out a whole pile of information. If you're keen, you can start doing e-learning and things before you come. Have a look at it, come up for an initial dive or try dive, and even just get your open water ticket as a hobby, and then decide you want to take it further. Like, there's just so many possibilities, and it's not set in any way. We have a variety of different programs. We start at different points, full-time and part-time through the year. And it's just, my buzz is the students' buzz. And one of my most exciting things at the moment is I came up here in 2004 as a bachelor. And now my daughter is doing our diploma and doing her instructors. So, that's a full cycle of it. So
That's wonderful.
yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool. Like, I didn't even have a daughter when I arrived, and now she's grown up through this world, and she doesn't want to follow my path. She wants to go into marine science. So she wants to save the world. So, and that's really exciting as well. But the dive instructor gives her that option to help in that sense, and her abilities to then go on and do marine studies as well, and have the combination of the two, which is so cool.
Yeah. And I'm going to jump back to my introduction, Darrell, where I actually said that, when we say to kids, what do you want to be? And they say plumber or whatever. But rather than that, how would you like to live? And I think you just hit the nail on the head there. You're living your dream. Your daughter's about to live her dream. There'd be very few of those careers that really allow you to be able to do that. And I was just looking up, I had to do a quick Google. 29% of the world is land, 71% is ocean. And if we're going to wander this place and all we're going to see is 29%, we're missing a hell of a chunk of what goes on. So I would just, I think that's, if we're explorers, if we love to travel, if we just simply love to see the world with open eyes, I think it's important we get under the water.
And one of the other things I think that's really important is it's a happy industry, right? So it's a real cool place to work. People are coming to do something they want. So they come in happy, and our job is to keep them happy. So it's a really cool environment to work in, with the different people, and definitely some different challenges with students or customers as they're going through their qualifications, but the rewards far outweigh anything, and they come in to do something that as a hobby is for enjoyment.
Yeah.
So I still love going to work, and then on my days off and I'll go dive. So there's not many trades that you want to do your job on a weekend.
No, and I just want to put a shout out to the schools, the outdoor ed instructors. I know where we came from. I don't know whether Grace, it was Johnny back then, but we've got schools who have committed a lot of funding, and because they believe strongly in it. I know recently you were dealing with a board who was a little bit nervous about kids coming, but you were just tentatively making sure they understood things. So I know some boards are nervous with health and safety, but those things can be solved. So I just want to put a shout out to schools, outdoor ed instructors, because there's a lot of people doing wonderful things for kids. And it's important work. I go back again to the introduction. It's confidence, it's resilience, it's building skill sets. I don't care whether you're a doctor, a nurse, or a dive instructor. Those things are really important. I've mentioned how they get hold of you. It's in Dive Zone Whitianga, so they can just ring, just ask personally for Darrell. I'll give them permission.
Absolutely. My mobile's always on.
There you go. I just want to know quickly before we ask our last few questions, did you get your caravan sorted?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, we do. Our camper. We're going to Perth on the 5th of July and come back on the 5th of August. So, yeah, we're doing the Ningaloo Reef with the manta rays. This is a holiday to go diving with the manta rays in Coral Bay, and then the whale sharks in Ningaloo Reef, and the humpback whales in Ningaloo Reef as well. So, even on my holidays, I end up going diving. So pretty excited about that. It's been a bucket list trip for us.
Congratulations already for that. Darrell, a last question in case Ludlam has more. We always ask if you could go back to yourself in 6th, 7th form, just you to you, what would you be giving? What advice would you be giving yourself?
Oh, look, to take those opportunities, like if something comes up that interests you, have a go, that's the key for me, not just follow something because it seemed to be what everyone thought you should do. Have a go. If you're interested in something, like you've got to love life or love work, and then it's not work really.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So, people say, when are you going to retire? Well, why would I? What am I going to do? I haven't gone to work ever.
Yeah, look, I just want to thank you for the impact you've had on so many kids. Like I say, from every school I've ever had anything to do with, your name comes up all the time. You're a bit of a legend in those fields, which brings me also to the way you do things. And I think I go back to that business model thing. It was just great it was someone like you, because I'm sure you could run a business like this and be a bit of a twat. But the way you go about it, the way you engage and break those generations, it doesn't matter how old the kids are, you're there, you're chatting, you're really engaged. And so I know a lot of kids have benefited, a lot of adults have benefited too from your interaction, your business and your skill set. So thank you for the work you do and the career paths you do gauge for kids, because not many of us can sort of have as much impact as you do, education and careers. Thank you for everything.
Hey, no worries, mate. I just love being part of it. And hey, anyone that's keen to learn to dive or wants to have an interest in this area at all, I'd love to show you what it's all about.
Wicked, mate. Oh, you take care, and I'm hoping the swell gets a little bit bigger so I can go for a surf, but you can't get out in your boat. And all the best with your Aussie trip.
But that 7 meters they're predicting on Sunday, so we won't even have to get in the water to go for a dive. We'll just wait for the wave.
Yeah, I'm going to be on that headland coming into the harbour there.
Crazy, eh? Cool,
Thank
mate.
you, Darrell.
Good talking to you.